Now, for the past 3.5, going on 4 years, I've been running Video Memories, and a couple of years back, I made a few recap videos talking about how episodes were made, any stories I have on them, what I think of the episodes. But just before I moved house, I came to the realization that the recap videos weren't that good and weren't that interesting. So this year I felt like doing a proper recap, covering everything, every single episode. So this is unscripted. I don't have anything prepared. I have some notes prepared, and I have no idea how long this is going to take. So let's begin. We start in 2016 with the multi-language compilation Chronicles of Gondarth. This was the first time I ever really spoke about my personal life, and it was very minor at best. It may not look like much these days, but that was probably the best multi-language compilation and probably one of the best multi-language videos I ever made. And then we have GT, which I started in early 2017, I think. It started with me talking about my opinions on the CGI series, which is outdated as it is. I talked about the multi-language series, I talked about Cartoon Network, Sonic the Hedgehog, the multi-language narrators I covered. It's all good, but my bit of advice, avoid the first 3 or 4 episodes of GT. They are awful. Eventually, in June 2017, I began to have a desire to make a video about the first Thomas and Friends video I ever owned. I didn't think much of it at that point. It was just something I wanted to do. I just wanted to make a video about it. So I came up with what I thought was a spin-off of GT called Video Memories. Now, a big thing about Video Memories here, I don't consider myself to be a great reviewer. I consider myself more of a storyteller, hence the title Video Memories. We start with episode 1, Troublesome Trucks and Other Stories. This is more of an acknowledgement video than an actual review, because I didn't really know where the series was going to go from the beginning. I just wanted to talk about that video. And, I didn't actually own the video at the time, so I went on eBay and bought my second copy of this, which I knew I wasn't going to watch it past the review, but I felt like if I was going to talk about it, I should at least own it. And then thankfully the reception to episode 1 was really good, so I thought, okay, what can I do from there? And I settled on a video that no Thomas fan had ever covered up until that point. Episode 2, My Little Mini-Vid. Now this one is incredibly short, it's only 4 episodes. And it killed like half an hour of time when I was a kid, like when I was trying to avoid school, because no kid likes school. And, once again, I didn't really know what I was working towards with that, because it was only the second episode. Neither of them broke the 5-minute mark. But this one worked. I figured this would be a good episode to cover, because this would be a good video to cover, because no one has ever talked about this video. And then I began to think, what videos beyond Thomas and Friends did I enjoy as a kid? And my mind settled on episode 3, The Lion King. This was my first ever movie review, and out of all the episodes of Video Memories, this one is the most like GT, because I digressed a fair bit when I was doing the review, especially when I started talking about the video games. Because I went a fair bit into Timon and Pumbaa's Jungle Games with that. And that was... If there was a Video Memories episode that was the most like GT, it was The Lion King. Overall, I think it was a decent review, but if I was reviewing the movie today, I probably would have paid more attention to the movie, because I kind of rushed through it, and I think I covered the movie in less than 2 minutes, honestly. I talked more about the opening promos, and I think I was the first person to actually talk about opening promos in a review, which makes sense because it's not a movie review technically. I was reviewing the VHS copy of the movie, and like I said, Video Memories, it's stories about me and what I thought of the video when I was growing up. The one thing I can mention with that is, at the end, I said Lion King 2 was better than Lion King 1. I want to take that back. While I do really like Lion King 2, I don't think it's as good as Lion King 1 because, you know, it's direct-to-video, it was a lower budget. In most cases, the music isn't as good, but Lion King 2 is still a really good movie. It's just not as good as Lion King 1. Right, my next thought was, what could be a good review topic for a VHS and DVD review series? And then I realised something a lot of people thought about when they were younger, especially in the 1990s, rental versus purchasing. And that gave us episode 4, Escape, and episode 5, Spooks and Surprises. Now these are the first crystal clear stories for the series, and I guarantee you, the story I told in Escape is 100% true. I rented the video, I watched it when I got home, and then the video broke halfway through Escape when Oliver and Douglas are crossing the sunrise. The video just cuts to static and a bit of a waste of money, really. Now, these two episodes were made together and they were released in a span of 3 days. I think I did Escape first, and then I released Spooks and Surprises about 2 days later. And this is when the ideas just seemed to flow, where I started thinking, okay, I know what I'm doing here. I have ideas now. I know what to work with. And this is also where the Michelangelo's joke started. Well, it didn't start here. It started in Chronicles of Gondarth, where I just needed a video clip. Actually, I don't know if it did start in Chronicles of Gondarth. It was probably Michelangelo's narrator showcase. And, you know, I needed a live action clip of him to show at the end, because I did that with Manfred Steff, and I did it with Alexei Barunov. I did it with John Ogwyn. I did it with Ringo. So I needed something here, and I found a clip of him on a TV show called The Bill. And that was, I just used that because that was the first thing I had. And then I used it in Chronicles of Gondarth, and because all I had was music, I thought I should just fill the dead space with an audio clip. And what we had was him saying,
"His name's Nigel. Dr. Nigel Botterill."
Yeah, and then that idea, bit sort of stuck for me for some reason. I don't know why it did. It stuck for GT, and then it stuck for Video Memories, and now that we no longer have Mike, I've retired the joke. So should I cover a Thomas and Friends review, especially one featuring Mike, I will not be featuring that joke. Episode 6, Ringo Starr and his new all-star band. I'm a musician, so sooner or later I was going to have to cover my musical inspiration, the guy who made me pick up a set of drumsticks. And in this case, it would have to be the first Ringo DVD I ever owned. I think this was just the first one my mother bought me, and when he plays Back Off Boogaloo in this, that's when I started playing along, and yeah, the rest is history, really. I just had to praise the man, and it was released on his birthday. So I did Spooks and Surprises on, I think, on July 1st, and then I did this for July 7th, which is Ringo's birthday. It was his 77th birthday, I think, so it's an average review. The audio work wasn't that great, and you know, honestly, it's kind of hard to cover a DVD that's a music DVD because, you know, copyright issues and such. So overall, average review, pretty decent DVD though. Episode 7, Chases, Races and Runaways. Now this was my favourite Thomas and Friends VHS tape when I was a kid, so I thought it'd be easy to cover. Then I started writing it, and no, not so much, not a chance. Beyond the opening promos, I had absolutely nothing to talk about. I could praise the video, I can talk about what episodes were on the video, but that was it, really. This was probably a sign that Thomas and Friends wasn't going to be a fun topic to cover in Video Memories, although it wouldn't hit me for at least another 2 years. So I do not recommend this review. It is incredibly boring. I talk about virtually nothing, but I will say this. Recently, I did a review with ThomasFan261. Go watch that review. It is 10 times the review I could have ever made. Episode 8, Best Loved Sing-Along Songs. Somehow the most popular review I have ever made. Now, I was raised around the Singing Kettle, so I would have to cover one of their releases at some point. I did consider covering Singing Kettle Pirates during Troublesome Trucks, but I didn't really think there was much to talk about when it comes to a children's stage show. So I figured this video would be a decent introduction to anyone who hasn't seen the group, and you know, honestly, I didn't think much past reviewing just this one. I thought this would cover it fine. And I think overall, this is probably the best review I made out of the first 10. The best thing that can happen for a review is when the review subject holds up better than it has any right to, and that was the case with Best Love Singalong songs. So that is the best review I made probably until episode 13. Episode 9, My Little Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends video. This was a pretty simple and very basic and average episode. Plain and simple. I just needed something to do. This was the first thing that came to my mind, and yeah. I have two things to say here. One, there's a music track I used in this. I think I was talking about MTV or VH1, I forget which, and there was a music track that started playing, and I commented that it's an awful track, and whoever made that should be ashamed of themselves. I should mention that's a track I made in 2013 when I was on a music course. It's called, I made two songs there. One of them was called City Cruise, which is nothing major. I actually ripped off the saxophone riff from YouTube, so nothing amazing there. The second track, and this is the one I used in the review, is called Rush Hour. And let's put it this way, not only is it really bad, but I'm thankful I didn't try and publish it, because if I did, I would have probably faced a plagiarism lawsuit from Cream, especially Ginger Baker, because if you've heard of the band Cream, they released a song in 1968 called Toad, and it was basically like a 5 or 6 minute drum solo with a guitar and bass introduction, and that's pretty much what I did here, and it wasn't even that good. So yeah, average review, awful song I used. Also, I talked about trying to watch Thomas and Friends in a mirror or out the window to get a mirrored image of the video I was watching, and trust me, trying to get that shot of Thomas going up the hill while trying to film it through the window was a nightmare and a half to do. I must have done that at least 5 or 6 times trying to get that one shot. It was not easy trying to get that, so I did what I could. Episode 10, Top 10 Movies. Now this was initially going to be a GT episode. I had it planned about 6 months prior to this, and I'd written everything. I was in the middle of recording, and I got to a portion of Back to the Future 3, and I struggled a lot with that one, and by the time I finished recording the audio, long story short, I realised it was an awful recording, and I just could not bring myself to either redo it or even bother with the episode at that point. So that was junked, and I had to get a new set of recording equipment because I was using one of those headsets with a mic clamped to the side, and the audio, if you listen to, I think the first 5 GT episodes, you'll notice the audio is a little bit different than what I do from I think the multi-language narrators video onwards and video memories, and that headset was awful. It came out sounding like absolute shit, and so I junked the episode, and then I realised, right, I have new audio equipment, and this is something about videos and DVDs. I feel like this would make a good video memories episode. So I had to rewrite it, fixing the issue with the wording I was having, because I start with recording a lot. Recording, when you're making a review, recording audio or recording voiceover is the worst part of it. You can write things, you can watch a video or DVD to get notes, you can write things, you can edit it. That's all perfectly fine, but recording audio is the worst thing in the world when you're doing a review. And for me, I've got to be in a good mood in order to get away with it, and oh my god, it was a pain, and even to this day it can still be a pain. I have to be in the right mood, and my patience level has to be decent and high to be able to make it. So usually when I'm done recording, I'm just happy it's done. Now I should mention, this review is a little bit out of date, because it was 3 years ago for one thing, going on 4. Mrs. Doubtfire got promoted, and Furious 7 got dropped for Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. It was an alright episode, but I feel like you could ignore this one, because doing a top 10 list in a review series like this, honestly, a top 10 list can change all the time, so this probably wasn't the best idea, but it's not the worst episode I've ever made. Also at this point, I didn't have a review schedule at all. I didn't really have any plans for the most part, I didn't really have any plans on what I was reviewing next. I think that only happened like 2 or 3 times in the entire series up until this point. And, you know, I didn't realise I'd be covering Back to the Future. I didn't realise I'd be talking about Fast and Furious. I didn't even realise I'd be talking about Toy Story. So, yeah, I didn't have plans yet, but that was about to change. This is when I started to take notes. I was thinking, right, I have a lot of ideas. I know videos I could cover. I know videos I have stories for. I need to make a list. So I eventually made a list of every video and DVD I wanted to cover. And on here I also made notes based on anything I knew I wanted to say and any type of music I wanted to cover. If you're getting interested in doing a review for a video or a DVD or whatever, my best advice is this. Write everything down. If you're out and about and you have an idea of what you want to say or what you want to show, write it down as soon as you can, because trust me, you never know when you want to use it. Even if you don't want to use it, it's always there. So that's my one bit of advice. Write every idea down, even if it's a bad idea. First on the list was episode 11, Story and Song Collection. This video is pretty self-explanatory. I think I covered everything in it. I'm not sure why I picked this one over other Thomas and Friends releases, but I think it was just the first thing that came to my mind. And yeah, no real complaints there. It's probably a video that just felt right at the time. Like, this is what should be done here. Episode 12, Pinocchio. Now, I hinted at this one in The Lion King. It's one of my favourite childhood Disney videos, and since I was posting something for Recordable Fridays, I figured this would be a good time to review it. Overall, it's not a bad review, but I do have a few minor gripes with it. But that's everyone, really, because that's an issue with making reviews or just any videos in general. You are your own toughest critic. You spot things other people don't. Now, at the end of the video, I talked about my recordable video collection, and that gave me an idea. I knew what I wanted to cover next. Episode 13, TV Marathons. Now, initially, this was just going to be about 2 Cartoon Network videos, both from 2005. And specifically my favourite period of Cartoon Network from 2005 to 2010. I gushed about this period of Cartoon Network in the GT episode dedicated to Cartoon Network. But at the time, I didn't actually have video evidence of what I was talking about, because I didn't have any capture software to capture video cassettes and such. I didn't even have my video collection at the time. But at this point, I realised, right, I have the videos now. I know how to get the footage I needed. This is the right time to talk about it. So it would have just been about cartoons, but then I remembered, if I'm going to talk about that, I'm going to have to talk about Cartoon Fridays. Then I remembered I watched something called DiGGiT as a kid. So at that point I just thought, you know, I might as well just cover every cartoon marathon I ever watched as a kid. Now in this, I briefly talked about recording Ed, Edd and Eddy. And, you know, I realised I should have recorded more, but believe me, when I said that, I didn't think I'd ever review the series. And since it's a video that gushes about Cartoon Network, it probably goes without saying that this is my favourite review from 2017. And I should say this now, that most of my Video Memories favourites are ones that are the least viewed. And these are ones that that have a story that doesn't involve a VHS tape. Or if the VHS tape or the DVD is obscure, like the Disney Holiday Planners. Episode 14, Happy Holidays. Yeah, this one was another very average one, and truth be told, this was here just because I felt like it was time for another Thomas and Friends review. And I probably picked this because when I reviewed it, we were in the middle of summer. So I suspect that's probably why I picked that one. It's another very average one. You can probably tell at this point I don't hold the Thomas and Friends reviews to that high of a regard. It is what it is, really. Episodes 15, 17 and 19, the Back to the Future trilogy. When I made the top 10 movies video, I knew I'd have to cover these 3 movies sooner or later. And truth be told, I think these are some of my worst reviews. For one thing, using VHS footage for these movies was a horrible idea. They look really, really choppy. And to add insult to injury, my review of the first movie was incredibly rushed. I can't stand to watch it these days. Part 1 was bad, Part 2 was okay, and Part 3 was decent but not one of my best. Now, if I made these episodes today, I would put more attention to the plot. I wouldn't use VHS footage, because that's how I first saw the movies, on VHS, so it was an idea that sounded smart at the time. And I wouldn't quote Part 2 as much, although that's the problem with Part 2 and all three of the movies really, is that they're incredibly quotable, and I found Part 2 was the most quotable of all three movies. So I don't regard the Back to the Future reviews that highly. I don't think I did that good of a job with them, so if you're going to watch any of them, just watch Part 3. Episode 16, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Now, I like the Harry Potter movies, but I really hated Half-Blood Prince. Initially, I planned to cover a different video for this, but then I realised, right, I hate Half-Blood Prince. I've got a few things to talk about. I have a story for it, so I can cover this another time. And believe me, if I didn't have a story for Half-Blood Prince, I wouldn't have covered it. Episode 18, Changes in Canada, Part 1. Now, if the voiceover sounds really bad in this one, it's because I recorded this, Back to the Future 3, and episode 20 with a really bad cold. The title Changes in Canada, it wasn't there initially. It was going to be just Thomas Comes to Breakfast and Best of James. And then I heard how well David Bowie's Changes worked with the review and the video I was using to fill the review, and I thought, okay, I have something here. It's a stupid title, but I'll use it anyway. This was another painfully average review. I had very little to talk about with these two videos, and I had a really mediocre story to go on. And let's put it this way: if Chases, Races and Runaways wasn't the first sign that I wasn't going to like reviewing Thomas and Friends releases, it was this one. Episode 20, Christmas Looney Tunes. Now, I'm going to be honest, this one got picked because I was needing something to cover for Christmas. That was it. No other reason. Thankfully, though, the video held up really well, so I was like, okay, this could be good. This I can work with. Overall, I felt like this review had a really mediocre voiceover, which probably you can attribute to me being sick. I'm going to say it's a good video release, but a very average review because I didn't really have much to say. I don't think I even broke the 4-minute mark on that one. That was the last one for 2017. For 2018, I figured I could get the series up to 50 episodes by the end of the year, which would mean 4 episodes each for January and March, 3 for December, and 2 each for the remaining months. Before January had even started, I already had 6 months worth of reviews to work with. So 2018 was probably the busiest year for video memories. Episode 21, Down the Mine. This one felt like a no-brainer at the time. It was the first episode of the year. I should cover one of the first Thomas and Friends videos I ever owned. So it just felt right to me. Not much was said in this review. I praised Michelangelos. I praised Season 1 because that is one of my favourite seasons of the entire show. This is one I was raised on. Yeah, not much was said in this review, but I thought it was a pretty good review as it was, surprisingly. Episode 22, Around the World with Timon and Pumbaa. I only had one story with this one, but this is easily one of my best Disney reviews I've ever made. The story revolved me watching this at my grandparents' house, and then I began to think, when I decided to do this, I was thinking, what did I have at my grandparents' house that I could cover? And that's when it hit me. Episode 23, Postman Pat's Big Video. Now, I didn't watch Postman Pat that much as a kid, but I loved this video to death. When I went to my grandparents' house, this was always the first one I'd watch. I don't know why, really, because, well, to be fair, they didn't really have that many Thomas and Friends videos. They only had one at the beginning. It was a children's preschool compilation, and all that had was one episode, and that was Trust Thomas, so I went to the next best thing when I wasn't in a Disney mood. My only problem for doing this review is I didn't own the video anymore, so I had to search it out on eBay, and I actually bought the wrong video. I didn't realise in the first place, but I bought this it's from 1988, I think. Actually, it's from 1986. And, you know, I didn't realise until I watched it that the opening not only does the video sound nowhere near as good as the one I had, but the opening promos were different, and I thought, fuck, I've bought the wrong one. So I had to quickly go on eBay and find this copy, and now I have two, so... And I like doing self-deprecating humour, so I had to make fun of the fact I bought the wrong one, that I bought the wrong video, and now I have two of them. And believe me, this isn't the only time I end up buying a wrong release. Trust me. Episode 24, The Chocolate Crunch. This was a viewer request from 2017, but unfortunately, like I said, I was preparing the review list months in advance, so this was the earliest I could fit it in. This was another average episode, and the only weird thing about this one is I have a severe lisp in the episode. When I have no idea what happened when I did the audio, when I did the voiceover for that. I have no idea what happened there. One thing I could mention is when I made the Michelangelos joke in this one, I used a clip from a movie he was in. It's from 1985 and it's called No Surrender. And the clip I featured in the review, I also used in the video James Quits the Steam Team.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Because I am nobody. Noted for it. And nobody should have to put up with this. And therefore, this nobody is given in his notice as from fucking now.
Episode 25, Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Yeah, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't really know if I wanted to cover this one because, you know, people have reviewed the movie, they've hammered it as much as they can. It's like being a dead horse at that point. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually cover it or not. Although that being said, I did have stories to go on, so my reasoning was cover the stories and just talk about the issues with the movie. That I saw, anyway. And this was before the leaked work print came out, so all I had to work with was the theatrical release. And before anyone asks, no, I haven't seen the Blu-ray release, and nor do I plan to. I stand by what I said in the review and the GT work print video. I stand by most of what I said in those videos. There is one exception, and we'll get to that eventually. Episode 26, Fast and Furious. This is another case where I was going to cover the birthday cartoon collection, but I figured I have stories with the Fast and Furious series, so I could do them now. I had a lot to say with it actually, and I was torn on it being a GT episode, but then I figured, you know, I have the DVDs, I have stories to go on, so I feel like this would work best with video memories. Overall, I felt like the review was okay. It's another case of you are your own toughest critic. And honestly, I probably should have waited for the series to finish before I actually covered it, because I only covered Fast and Furious 1 up to Fate of the Furious, and this was before Hobbs and Shaw.
No fucking way!
There's still Fast and Furious 9, they're still going to make number 10, and apparently there's going to be an 11th. So I probably should have waited, but God knows how long that would have been. Episode 27, Thomas on TV. Now this was initially going to be a review of this. This is a Nick Jr. video from 1999 and it's actually blank. See, I recorded a long Thomas and Friends marathon on this video from Percy Runs Away to, I think, Dirty Work in season 2. And, you know, I searched out when I searched through my recordable video collection, I found this and I thought, holy fuck, I know what this is. So I checked it out, thinking it'd be the holy grail of my recording collection, and you know, it's blank. It features like a second and a half of a movie promo for a movie called Heat, and you know, it's nothing but static. So you know, that was a bust. But I figured I could at least talk about that and see what it gave me. And you know, I didn't know how much I was going to get from that video, but I did have stories to go on, so I thought, okay, we'll see what it gets me. And then I realised, you know, I have other things from Nick Jr. I could talk about, like the Nick Jr. party from 2005. which I was surprised when I found that because, you know, I didn't think I'd still own that, especially, and I don't know how I forgot about it. You know, after 13 years at that point. And so I just decided to cover everything, every TV source I knew of for Thomas and Friends in the UK, which included Cartoon Network, ITV and Milkshake. I never watched them on Milkshake or Cartoon Network, but I may have seen them on ITV. It was mostly Nick Jr. for me when it came to Thomas and Friends. Now, I know I've been really down on my Thomas and Friends reviews up until this point, but Thomas on TV is easily the best Thomas and Friends review I've ever made, and one of the best Video Memories videos I've ever made altogether. And if I'm going to be brutally honest, I think this is my best Thomas and Friends video ever. I hold it to that high of a regard. And believe me, like I said, Video Memories is all about stories, and I had plenty of stories to go on this one. It's another case, it's like I said with TV marathons, the best reviews in my eyes are ones that feature either really obscure releases or don't actually feature official VHS or DVDs. So that's probably a reason why Thomas on TV won so well for me. Now, when Video Memories began, there were two videos I knew I'd have to cover at some point. The Birthday Cartoon Collection, which is still getting delayed, and Tom and Jerry Bad Day at Cat Rock. I'm a Tom and Jerry fan, so this was inevitable for me, and it felt like the right time for it. Episode 28 was pretty short, but it turned out quite well in my eyes. It was 3 minutes of me gushing about Tom and Jerry. It really is one of my favourite cartoons of all time. If anything, this review probably helped me remember why I love the series and how much I love the series. Episode 29, Funtime Favourites. This was another basic episode, and the video was really good. It was one of my favourite at my grandparents' house because it was the first proper Thomas and Friends video they ever had for me. And it's probably the second best video they had behind Postman Pat's big video. I feel like the review worked out fine. My only real dislike with it is how I reacted to the Runaway being Duck's episode, because the thing about Funtime Favourites is that apparently the fans picked the episodes, and for some reason Duck's episode was the Runaway. And my reaction to it sounded probably like a great idea at the time, but then I go back and rewatch it and I'm like, oh my god, that is awful. That is awful. Episode 30, High Stakes Sonic. This was a very, very average review. I'm a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I have been for 25 years, so I figured I should cover at least one thing relating to Sonic for Video Memories. And, you know, I owned this video as a kid. I was able to find it on eBay, and, you know, I had a story to go on relating to this, so there we go. Simples. Episode 31, Bugs Bunny's Easter Funnies. This is probably the most surprising review I ever made until 2020 with episode 76. See, I loved this video as a kid. I watched it every Easter, and I was more than happy to gush about it when I reviewed it. And then I rewatched it for the review, and I saw a release that had very little to do with Easter. So I was like, this is awful. I think the review is good, but my only gripe is the ending, because at the end, Bugs Bunny tells Granny that he can play the Easter Bunny if Granny delays Easter for a week. And then all of a sudden the Easter Bunny comes out of nowhere and resumes his job, and then and at that point I just shut the video off. I thought, oh fuck this, I'm done. And then just after that, about 2 seconds later, it's revealed that the Easter Bunny at the end was actually Daffy Duck. So I should have included that bit, but you know, my patience was tested with this video, and I decided to include that in the review, and I never stopped to check to make sure. I didn't actually realise it was Daffy Duck until I saved the video footage and I backed it onto an external hard drive that it was Daffy Duck. I didn't realise at that point, so I thought, oops, oh shit, I should have covered that. So I mentioned that in the next review. See, I don't think the review would have gained any more praise, or the video would have gained any more praise from me, but I do wish I included that one bit at the end. It doesn't make the video any better, trust me. Episode 32, The Very Best of Thomas and Friends. When I was a kid, this was my favourite Thomas and Friends DVD. So, since I covered Chases, Races and Runaways, I figured this one would be inevitable. The only difference here, unlike Chases, Races and Runaways, is I knew what I liked about this DVD, and it was the presentation of, you know, the menus and such. Because you load up the episode selection and you get the classic music, you get brief video clips of the episode you're watching, and I really liked that stuff when I was a kid. This is an episode that really does speak for itself. I think I talked more about presentation in videos and DVDs than I actually did talking about the actual DVD. So I don't really dislike the episode. I think it was fine, but I talked more about VHS and DVD presentation than I did the actual DVD. Episode 33, Bug Alert, Letters, Colours and Animals. This was another one I was unsure about. I decided to audition the video just for the hell of it, and it was probably the weirdest thing I had seen in years. I hadn't watched it in about 15 years, so I didn't know what I was getting into. So I gave the video a go, because I knew it was in my collection. I didn't think much of it, so I mean, you can barely see through the front cover here. So I gave it a go, and it was like coming off a really bad LSD trip. So at that point I figured I should at least talk about it. I think the detail about one of the characters being sadistic sealed the deal for me. That I had to talk about it at that point. I may not have much to work with, but I can at least get a couple of minutes out of that. At this point I know what I'm covering for my birthday, but I needed a review to fill in the space between Bug Alert and this. And this was a video I owned in my grandmother's house. And I thought, what else did I have there in that house besides this? And my mind settled on Singing Kettle, Adventures in Kettle Land. And as the time approached, I realised I probably didn't have enough to go on with just that video, so I decided to include Singing Kettle Christmas Crackers from 1992, I think. Adventures in Kettle Land from 1993 and Sing Kettle World Tour from 1994, and that gave us episode 34, Early Singing Kettle. This was more or less a filler episode, but it worked out fine, and it's one of the most popular reviews I've ever done. Which brings us to episode 35, The Original Adventures of Thomas and Friends. Now, I've made it clear up until this point that season 1 is my favourite season of Thomas and Friends, so a compilation of that season, all 26 episodes, seemed like a perfect birthday episode to me. See, I loved the release when I was a kid, I still do when you think about it, but I realised when I was reviewing it, it's a pretty redundant video in my collection because I owned everything from season 1 up until this point, so I really didn't have anything to gain from this. This is probably the first time when I sort of talked about my desire for practicality over, you know, just collecting things in general. But you know, that being said, this is still the best VHS release from my grandmother's collection. I think the best part of that episode has to be the opening, which featured my model railway also at my grandmother's house. I haven't seen it in 10 years, but as far as I know it's still there in her attic gathering dust as far as I'm aware. I don't think anyone's touched it in that time. Episode 36, Kim Possible, The Secret Files. This is one of my favourite cartoons of all time. I marathoned the entire series in 2017 on Amazon. This was before Disney Plus, obviously. I spent about £100 to buy the entire series on Amazon. It's probably the most I've ever spent on a single TV show. So I knew I could easily cover the series. And once I found my old copy of this DVD in my mother's house, I knew I was set. Overall, it's not a bad review, but I had a problem when I made this one. I was so invested in video memories. I made this review 4 months in advance. I made it probably early March, and it wasn't due to come out until the middle of June. Yeah, I was well prepared for this, and believe me, it only gets worse next year. Episode 37, Biggest Party Video Ever. Yeah, when I was doing research for this. Apparently the Fogman was due to be covered here, and I completely forgot about that. This was the longest Thomas and Friends video in my entire collection, and I never really liked it as a kid, and I can never remember why. Then when I auditioned it for Video Memories, I remembered exactly why I didn't like it. There's really bad presentation, and the episode arrangement is horrific. I spent the majority of the review criticising these aspects, but looking back, I don't think it's technically a bad release, because I may not like it, but when you think about kids of the 90s who loved the show and they really wanted to watch it, when you think about it, it's not that bad of a release in that aspect. And believe me, this isn't Half-Blood Prince or Bugs Bunny's Easter Funnies bad. Someone asked me when I did the VHS and DVD collection video last year, what was the best 1 out of 5 I gave in the entirety of Video Memories, and I think it goes to this. I feel like this is probably the best 1 out of 5 I've ever covered. I don't like it, but technically it's not a bad release. The kids will love it still. Episode 38, The Birthday Cartoon Collection. This was one of the oldest videos in my entire collection. It's from 1988. It's older than me, and I had been waiting to cover it for a long time. It was, like I said, it was going to be episode 18, but that got pushed for Changes in Canada Part 1. And then it was going to be episode 26, but then it got pushed for Fast and Furious, so I figured, right, this is the time. It's getting covered now. I was determined to review to this point, and then I learned that it was a charity video, so I was like, right, I have to make this one count. I thought the review was pretty good, but I do have one serious gripe with it. Throughout the review, and I don't know why this happened, I got the title wrong multiple times. It's the Birthday Cartoon Collection, but I called it the Birthday Video Collection. I have no idea why this happened, and what's worse, I didn't even notice I had an issue, or that I'd even said it wrong until I was in the production stage and I needed to get a shot of the front cover, and then I saw what it said and I was like, wait a minute, what did I say? And then I listened to the audio and I thought, fuck, I got it wrong. I mean, beyond that, it's a minor gripe at best, but beyond that, I thought the review turned out pretty well. Episode 39, Cartoon Network 2 and Help It's the Hair Bear Bunch. Oh boy, here we go. I like the stories I had in this. I like the what I said about Cartoon Network 2 and my god-awful viewing habits. But that being said, this is my least favourite Video Memories review I have ever made because of the voiceover. It is god-awful in this. And for some reason, this is one of the most popular reviews I've ever made, and I don't get it. The review is fucking awful. Episode 40, Changes in Canada, Part 2. Initially, I didn't have a sequel planned for Changes in Canada, but I was organising some DVDs and I found my copy of Thomas and Friends Get Along. And sure enough, I opened the case and inside is Thomas and his friends help out. Now, like I said, I'm into self-deprecating humour, so naturally I had to make fun of this. Now this is where it begins to finally sink in that reviewing Thomas and Friends is an absolute pain in the ass. I covered 2 DVDs in this review, including a story, and it barely broke the 5-minute mark. I had that little to talk about. Episode 41, Dexter's Laboratory Ego Trip. This was another pretty average episode. Let's put it this way, if I have an excuse to talk about Cartoon Network, it's going to happen. I think the most I can say about this review is the opening clip from D-Dimensional. I searched for that Cartoon Network promo for months, and I was almost ready to do the review without it. But let me just put it this way. You can find anything on the internet. You just need to know what to look up. Episode 42, Pokemon videos. Now, there's an ad in Dexter's Laboratory Ego Trip for Pokemon videos. So I knew I'd have to talk about why I hadn't covered Pokemon videos up until that point. Because I've been a massive fan of Pokemon since the late 90s. It was one of the biggest things in my life at that point, between 1999 and probably 2006. And it dates back to GT. I actually was making an episode for GT about Pokemon, and I needed a clip from the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. I recorded a brief clip on my phone. That's how quick I wanted it done. It was a clip of Ash dying at the hands of Mewtwo and Mew. So I posted that to YouTube so I could download it and get it in the correct file format, and it got blocked worldwide. And I thought, shit, I have a problem here. I explained everything in the Pokemon Videos review. That was more of an acknowledgement, and I talked in more detail about the problem as to why I couldn't cover Pokemon videos, so just watch the episode if you want the story there. Episode 43, Chad Valley video. Now, I've owned this video for 15 years, and I don't ever remember watching it, and when I got my VHS collection organised in 2017, I had no idea what this was. I had no idea what it was, what was on it, or when I got it. I just had it. I had to look the video up on the Thomas and Friends wiki, and it turns out it was a giveaway video. It was a giveaway with terrible episode selection and virtually no info on it. So I figured, time to tear this a new one. As far as I'm concerned, Chad Valley is a perfect example of practicality and how I differ from other Thomas and Friends fans who love to collect everything. As far as I'm concerned, this thing is completely worthless, even if it is a free giveaway. Episode 44, Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. I needed a Halloween episode, this fit the bill, so not much to say. Fortunately, the video itself turned out really good. It is my favourite Scooby-Doo movie after all, so the review worked out well. Not much to say there. Episode 45, Trust Thomas and Other Stories. This was another video release I didn't own, but I had plenty to talk about. I bought the video on eBay, and then I wrote the episode and recorded the voiceover while I waited for delivery. Now, my cousin initially owned the video, and it featured that opening promo that's on Down the Mine and Other Stories, and probably all the classic ones like Thomas and the Trucks, The Runaway and all them. And then when this arrived, this is the one I bought. It not only ran like shit, but also it didn't have that opening promo, so I realised I bought the wrong video, and this one is from 1991 as opposed to 1992, which was the one I wanted. And honestly, you look at the front cover, you barely notice anything, you barely notice a difference. So unfortunately for this one, I just had to use someone else's video for this because I had already written the episode and recorded the voiceover, which probably wasn't a smart move on my part. So yeah, I had to use someone else's video. I forget who it was that I used, who's the footage I got. I forget who it was, the footage that I used. I forget who I got that from. Episode 46, ONdigital and the New Magic Roundabout. This was an episode I was looking forward to making. Classic Cartoon Network is a great source of nostalgia, and ONdigital is such a great topic for video memories. It's a seriously flawed subscription TV service, and I knew I had it when I was younger, so I knew I could get a few things out of that, and it's probably one of the best stories I've ever told in video memories. Now, when it comes to the Magic Roundabout, I took a look at the back of the case, and there is absolutely no episode listing whatsoever, so I was confused and as all hell and thought, what can I talk about here if there's no episode listing on the back? See, I thought it would be a hindrance, but then I thought, just go with it, and it'll all work out. And it actually did. And this is one of my favourite video memories episodes I've ever made. And like I said, one of the best stories I've ever told. Episode 47, TV ads and Thomas's train. This was another big one for me. When I found my recordable video collection and I saw the ads for the Chelsea Building Society and Telewest Broadband and those Millennium ads like Lego Monsters and Sainsbury's, those Millennium Sainsbury's ads, I knew I'd have to make use of them at some point. Originally, I was just going to focus on television ads and but when I wrote about how spongy a kid's brain can be, I remembered there was a Thomas and Friends release that would fit the subject. It was one I saw in 2003. It was at a daycare centre, and I remember I saw it, but I didn't remember what it was and what it contained, apart from it having whistles and sneezes near the beginning. So I thought, okay, this fits with the spongy brain aspect, I can talk about this. That review more or less counts as an honourable mention, because I didn't have much to go on, but it fits with the spongy brain aspect of the review, so yeah, it gets an honourable mention for that. Episode 48, Wacky Races Volume 1. This was another filler episode. At the beginning, I talk about me being really hungover and taking a trip to Blackpool in 2012. That story has nothing to do with Wacky Races, but I just thought it'd be something to laugh about, and well, technically it does, because the first thing I did when I woke up that day was watch Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines in the dark at 4 in the morning, so in a way it sort of relates. But with Wacky Races it has no connection whatsoever. I just felt like it was a story I could have a laugh with. Episode 49, Seasonal Scrapes. Now this was a video I owned for a while as a kid, and I remember when I thought about reviewing it I was like, I don't remember any of this. I don't remember ever owning this video or watching it. So this was, and still is, as close to a blind review as I'm willing to get. And considering how it's basically working with a blank slate, I think the review turned out pretty well for what I was given to work with. Episode 50, Singing Kettle Pirates. Now, like I said earlier, Singing Kettle Pirates was the first VHS tape I ever owned, and I knew I'd have to talk about it eventually, even if I had very little to say. Even though I mostly made fun of the plot, I feel like this is one of my best reviews, and it's definitely my best Singing Kettle review, and I'm thankful for that. For a while in 2017 and 2018, I thought Singing Kettle Pirates would be a good review to end the series on, and for a while that was the plan. But by the time Trust Thomas and ONdigital came around, and I eventually made them, I realised I had at least one more year left in me. Although that being said, 2019 was a fucking nightmare of a year. And my problems date back to December 2018 because I just finished my Simpsons marathon. I'll get to that in a minute. I'll get to that soon. And I heard a dripping noise coming from the roof of my old house. So I went through, there's water coming in one of the cupboards, and I won't go into details about what happened with my upstairs neighbour, but the entire roof of the cupboard was damaged, and there was water pouring in constantly. So this was a pretty severe house flood I had, and the water was dripping for about 2 weeks, and long story short, the entire ceiling was, for lack of a better term, fucked. And it would only get worse from there, because it took 3 months to get that fixed, and then less than 2 months later, I have water damage coming in my bathroom from the same house, and I eventually learned that I would have to move house in order to get the repair work done, and that's how I ended up here. This is why I moved into this house, and I'm thankful because this is the better house. And you know, all that being said, despite that house flood and how much of a nightmare 2019 was, I feel like 2019 might have been the best year for video memories. I knew exactly what I wanted to cover. Let's put it this way, the entire year's worth of episodes was planned out pretty much before the end of January. Episode 51, The Aristocats. I wanted to start this year with one of my oldest Disney releases, one I hadn't seen in years, and thankfully it worked out well. I suppose you could say this could be considered a safe review, plus it gave me a good transition for the next review, which was something I'd wanted to talk about for 6 months. Episode 52, The Disney Holiday Planner. This was something I owned from my childhood. My mother owned 2 of these, and I watched it in probably the mid to late 90s, and like those TV ads, it stuck with me. Now, around July 2018, I managed to find one of the holiday planners on YouTube, and at that point I knew I could talk about this. I had stuff to talk about. So I knew I would be able to make something of it. I just had to find the time for it. So I went on eBay to find it. Now, a problem here is that I remembered what the video contained, but I didn't have the front cover for it. I didn't know what it was. So I took a wild guess on one of the planners I found on eBay, and I bought this. And shock and surprise, I was completely wrong. This one is from 1994, and it's not a bad video technically, but it wasn't what I was after. So I had to do a bit of digging, and then I was able to find this, and this is the correct video. This is what I was wanting. And considering the fact that the video is only 23 minutes long, or at least the Walt Disney Tour is, and no one had ever done a review of a holiday planner before, I'm surprised at how well this worked out. As far as I'm concerned, this was my second best review of the entire year, and the year had only just started. Now, before the year began, I made an announcement video about what was happening with Video Memories, and I made a serious mistake in my eyes. I made a promise to review every single Thomas and Friends video in my collection that I hadn't already covered, and I promised I would do it before the end of the year. So I decided to start with the earliest in my collection, which gave us episode 53, Percy and the Signal and Other Stories. This one was okay. This one was an okay review. I had a story to go on, and that helped the release, which helped the review as well. So, you know, I have no real gripes. Actually, one thing I can say about that review, before I covered Percy and the Signal, I briefly talked about this, the complete third season. You know, it's simple. It has everything from season 3, all 26 episodes, but I don't really like season 3 that much, so I actually made a quick 20-second review, and then I threw it across my house. When I moved into this house and I was organising all the videos together, I noticed there's a small dent right here. There's a small dent in the video, which I think probably has to do with me throwing it. So, yeah, I may have left a bit of damage on this, but not that I care really. Episode 54, Singing Kettle News. This one made the list when I remembered how weird the whole concept was, and I realised it's just weird enough to work. Episode 55, Children's Cartoon Favourites. This was a part of my grandparents' VHS collection, and I considered it to be the worst video in the collection. Then when I was getting my video collection back together in 2017, I found it in the box for Home Alone 2. And Home Alone 2 was in the VCR when I moved it. So I hadn't seen the video in about 15, 20 years. Actually, it's probably more like 10 years now that I think about it. Basically, I hadn't seen it for a long time, and I couldn't even remember what it was. So I put it in, and I'm like, oh, dear God, now I remember this. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, these shows are awful. Why did I own this? Because when my grandparents died, the VHS collection they had was sold off, and I took 2 videos from that collection. One of them I'll get to soon, and the other one was Children's Cartoon Favourites, and I don't know why I took that one. It was basically a giant free-for-all at that point. But I figured it was god-awful. Most of the year was going to be positive, so I figured I can fit in one negative review for this. I didn't really have much to talk about, so I decided to talk about the VHS company that distributed the video, Tempo Video, and another series they also released for Spot the Dog. Often in 2017 and 2018, I considered covering Spot the Dog at one point because it's a really good show. It's very simple but very enjoyable. So I figured I could, if I had a video for it, I could review it. I even knew which video I wanted to cover, but I just couldn't find it on eBay. So I decided to give it a mention here. And sure enough, wouldn't you know it, when I'm preparing for this video, I took a look on eBay, and sure enough, the video I wanted was on sale, and I thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm not doing it now. I gave it a mention in this release, in this review, so there's no point now. But that being said, Spot the Dog is a good series, so I'd recommend that one. Episode 56, The Early Years. Now I made this one out to be Changes in Canada Part 3, but I'm not 100% sure. For all I know, it may have been an Amazon import. I don't actually remember buying this one, so when in doubt, just make a joke about it. Overall, I feel like this is my best American Thomas and Friends review. I went into a lot of depth and a lot of analysis with this one. Episode 57, Pingu's Big Video, and episode 58, Thomas Gets Bumped. I wrote and recorded these two episodes at the same time. I needed a setup to Thomas Gets Bumped, and that's where Pingu comes in. Pingu's Big Video is easily the best filler episode I've ever made. I went back and watched the first season before making the review, and it was hilarious. It was really funny. And the Pingu episode was probably one of the easiest reviews I've ever made. I think between writing it and then finishing it and posting it, that was probably 48 hours at most. So it was probably the fastest review I ever made. Now, with both of these, I owned Pingu's Big Video when I was a kid, and my cousin owned Thomas Gets Bumped. Both of them were brought over from my grandparents' VHS collection, and like I said, when they died, we just took what we wanted, and it was basically a first come first served situation here. He took Pingu's Big Video, so I took Thomas Gets Bumped. And despite the story building up to the review, I didn't have much to say about it. Like I said in the review, if I owned this video pre-2003, I probably would have loved it and I would have had stuff to talk about. But I got the video in 2008 and Thomas and Friends was already on its way out at that point, so I had nothing to go on. It's another case of it's not a bad release, I just have nothing to talk about. Episode 59, Ed, Edd and Eddy. Now this episode started out simply as a review of Ed, Edd and Eddy's Big Picture Show. But then I realised if I'm going to talk about that, I need to talk about my history with the series in general, so I thought, fuck it, might as well cover everything. This is a case of needing to sit down to write something and not being able to stop writing. I had a lot to say with this one. I mean, it is my favourite cartoon of all time. I've made that clear many, many times. So, yeah, naturally I had a lot to talk about. This is my best episode of 2019 and probably one of the best videos I've ever made. When it comes to overall video memories episodes, I would rank it higher than, I think I put it at number 5. But I had to re-edit the audio twice. I was almost done the first time round, but Audacity crashed on me the first time when I was done. So I had to take in the raw audio work and quickly re-edit everything together, and I rushed it a little bit, so things are a bit hit and miss with it. But when it comes to actual review subjects, this is easily one of the best. And I think if I didn't have those audio issues, I would have ranked it higher, at least in the top 3. Episode 60, Ringo's Starr, Tour 2010 Live. This was another filler episode and probably one of the last episodes I decided on for that year. And you know, honestly, it's like I said with the first Ringo review, it's a music DVD, so there's very little to say with it other than what songs are on the DVD. So the majority of the video revolved around me actually going to see him live in Liverpool and the Beatles taxi tour I took the next day. I don't usually promote things that much, but in this case, if you go to Liverpool, take one of those 3-hour Beatles taxi tours. It's easily worth the time and money. Episode 61, Peep, Peep, Party. I think at this point I was like, okay, it's another Thomas and Friends review, let's just get this over with. If you watch the review, this is when you can start hearing my dislike for reviewing this series in my voice. I just wanted this one over and done with. And you know, honestly, I've owned this video for 20 years and I didn't realise how bad the title was until I started writing about it, and I'd used the title about 3 or 4 times in a span of 2 minutes. Episode 62, DiGGiT and Jungle Cubs Born to be Wild. This was another one I wasn't sure about, because I hadn't seen the video in close to 20 years. There was a section in the video where Baloo gets stung by a bee, and I hated bees when I was a kid, so I never bothered to watch this. So I gave it another watch, and I thought, you know, this is pretty good. I can get something out of this. This also gave me a chance to talk about DiGGiT. I briefly talked about it in TV marathons, but this is my chance to expand upon it. This is also where I bought Animaniacs. I actually did film myself buying it on eBay for that review. Episode 62, Looney Tunes Special Bumper Collection, Volume 8. Now, I talked about this in the review. I didn't actually buy this for video memories. I just bought this because it was one of my favourite VHS compilations when I was a kid, and I thought I wanted to buy it again just for my own entertainment purposes. And then I watched the first video in this, and I suffered extreme confusion because, you know, I remembered none of it, despite it being one of my favourites. And, you know, right there, story gold for video memories. Episode 64, Thomas and Stepney and Other Stories. Now, I knew going into this one that I was going to have a problem. Beyond the intro, where I showed Troublesome trucks, and then I talked about what videos I could watch, and then this came along, and then I talked about the opening promos, I had nothing to go on. So this is probably another case of just get it over and done with, and then I never have to talk about it again. See, I liked the video as a kid, but at this point I just wanted it out of the way, and you can hear in my voice and the things I briefly talked about that I was just so sick of doing Thomas and Friends. This is also where the rating system came into place, because I was on holiday in June at this point, and you know, I was writing the episode when I had some downtime, and when I was rewatching some older reviews, I began to think, I don't think I've been clear enough on what I thought of the videos. I didn't really give them a proper rating, because most people, when they do reviews, they give it like a something out of 5 or something out of 10, and I thought, could I do that? So I literally, one night in June, I quite literally wrote down every single review, every single release I'd ever reviewed in Video Memories. I'm like, right, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 0 out of 5 in the case of Chad Valley. So I included that at the end of the review so I could quickly explain my issues with it, and then we can quickly brush through all the ratings and just get over and done with. I really should have added the ratings at the beginning, not near the fucking end of it all, because I only had about 7 or 8 reviews left of the year, and it seemed like a weird time. Even at that point, I was like, this is weird just doing it now. But it is what it is. Episode 65, Singing Kettle, Busy Roadshow. This was another filler episode, but I at least had a few stories to go on. One thing I could mention is that the ending clip with me unwrapping Animaniacs Volume 2 was actually filmed in May, about a week after I bought it. So even if I didn't want to review Busy Roadshow, I was pretty much stuck with it at that point. Episode 66, Animaniacs Volume 2. This is, simply put, one of the best reviews I've ever made, and as far as I'm concerned, it may be short, but it shits on most of my Thomas and Friends reviews. See, I knew I liked the series before I ended up reviewing this, but when I watched this, I laughed myself silly. I forgot how good the series was. Episode 67, Rescues on the Railways. This one wasn't too bad. First of all, it featured The Great Discovery. I found that at the same time I found Thomas and His Friends Help Out and Get Along. And if anyone's concerned, the DVD box was empty when I threw it. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep the DVD or not, so I didn't want a chance damaging it. I kind of liked the movie, but I wasn't interested in reviewing it. At this point, I was just trying to get Thomas and Friends videos out of the way so I could move on. Which, by some freaky coincidence, was the 20th anniversary of this video actually being released. Trust me, I had no idea when I put it at that point on the list. I just figured it's October, it's sort of spooky related, it would fit. I think the best and worst parts of this review were the Silver Lining drum cover. Let me just say this, I had to record that drum cover about close to 20 times. This is the problem with recording on an electronic kit. See, with this, you never get a decent audio sound, because either I hit the drum wrong, or I dropped a drumstick, or the phone fell when I was trying to film it, or just something else went wrong. And trust me, I hated recording that drum cover. Episode 68, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. This was another Halloween episode, and I might as well do another Scooby-Doo review on this. And my favourite part of the review has to be my reaction to finding out there was a Cartoon Network comic. See, until I came to do this review, I had no idea there was a Cartoon Network comic. So I spent about a week doing research for this. And believe me, that was hard. There is little to no info on that comic out there. But I knew I had to talk about it because I'm a Cartoon Network nut, and just finding out that this comic was there when I was a kid and I never knew about it, that is something that I just had to talk about that. Now, this review almost came out without me talking about the sequel to this movie. I saw Return to Zombie Island in early October and it was awful. So I had less than a week to write something, record additional voiceover and edit it into an already finished review. So it almost came out without it. So I would say watch the original Zombie Island, avoid the sequel. It had potential, it had really good potential, and then when you find out that the zombies are just the hotel staff and they're all actors, that just ruined the entire movie, honestly. Now, around this point, like I said earlier, house repairs were going on in my old house. And I was found out I would need to move out in order to let the work be done. I wasn't sure when I was moving out. For all I know, it could have been the next week from when I heard the news. So I had to crank out the remaining 4 episodes, I think. And I wasn't sure what would happen. The only thing I knew from this is that this was probably going to be the last year for Video Memories, because I had no idea what was going to happen in the new year. Episode 69, The Simpsons. Now, everything I said about that Simpsons marathon is 100% true. I had been wanting to catch up on the series for a long time, many years for that matter. But I hadn't watched the show properly in about 10 or so years. So I decided I could watch... This was in October 2018 when I decided this. I had no idea I would ever review this, or even talk about this. This was just a personal thing to me. I decided I could watch 649 episodes, plus a movie, from the middle of October to the end of December. Yeah, trust me, it's not one of my smartest moments. And I didn't think I'd ever be talking about this to anyone outside of my fiancé and any of my friends. I didn't think it would become a Video Memories thing. It was just something I did because I'm an idiot and I like dumb challenges. Episode 70, Tom and Jerry the Movie. Now, like I said, I'm a Tom and Jerry lover and I love talking about Cartoon Network, and I would take any excuse in the world to talk about it even more, even if I was rehashing things. So this gave me the perfect reason to do the movie, because I recorded it from BBC One in 1999 initially, and I missed the beginning of the movie. I actually started recording when Tom runs into the bulldog and he ties his ears together, I think. I can't remember. But then it aired about 6 months later on Cartoon Network, and, you know, I have to have that. And, you know, oddly enough, I never actually bought the video properly. I just have the recordable version. And the more I think about it, the more I realise this movie is my favourite guilty pleasure. I know it's a bad movie, but I keep coming back to it. The soundtrack especially. Every now and then. It's a god-awful soundtrack, but, you know, I like What Do We Care, and even Friends to the End is starting to grow on me. Episode 71, The Fogman and Brave Little Engines. Once again, I had very little to say. It's the curse of Thomas and Friends. I have nothing to talk about. I think I talked about video certificates more than I did these two videos combined. I did contemplate at one point on doing a video specifically about video certificates between videos and DVDs, but I had stuff to talk about, but I didn't think it would give me more than 2 or 3 minutes at best. So I just decided to do it here and just cover all my Toms and Friends videos and why the certificates are different between U and UC. Not that there's much of a difference between them both, really, and UC isn't even used these days, so... You know, I just felt like talking about that there. I mean, honestly, it's more interesting than... It's a more interesting topic than the videos themselves, really. I mean, they're not bad videos, I can't talk about them. I think the best part of this review is the quote-unquote essay on why kids of the 90s loved the VHS format. My way of thinking about it is this. What would I say to people who never had VHS as a kid in their youth, and what would I say about it? And about what VHS meant to us. That was basically my way of thinking about that, and you know, I just went from there. A little bit of trivia here for the multi-language fans. The song I use for the montage at the end of that review is called "Weather Without You" by Mikhail Rickford. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. He's currently in a relationship with Louise Rader. They do gigs together as well. She was the original Swedish narrator for Toms and Friends.
Hej Percy! Trevligt att vara tillbaka!
And she's actually a really good narrator at that, so... Yeah, I was doing her showcase, and I needed a live action clip for her, and then I heard Mikhail Rickford's music. And the clip I used... And that was the two of them doing a song called Away Again, and then I used that same song, a different recording, but the same song for the intro to Space Jam. So yeah, that's just and then I grew to like his music, well, his English songs anyway, because I don't speak a word of Swedish. So yeah, that's just a little bit of trivia there for that one.
Away again, away and away again.
Episode 72, Singing Kettle Christmas Party. Basically put, I was needing a Christmas episode to finish the year, and I knew that this video would be a very fitting ending. It's one of the most iconic shows the group has ever done, and the video holds up well, which helps. And I thought that would be it for Video Memories. I moved house at the end of January, and then about a week later, I did the VHS and DVD collection video, and I talked briefly about Space Jam when I got to the VHS section, and I mentioned that if Video Memories ever came back, I could talk about that, because I had stuff to talk about, but I was going to cover it initially when I did the Looney Tunes Special Bumper Collection, and I had a joke for that. And then I mentioned it to my fiance, and she explained why I forget what the aliens are called, but why they did what they did. It's in the review. I explained it there. So I had to junk that. But then I realised, you know, I have stuff to talk about, so I could review Space Jam. Should Video Memories come back? And at that point, I was thinking, right, I have other ideas. I have Space Jam. I have that weird BBC 10 in a bed video from the late 80s, and I have the MCU movies because I grew to like them when I marathoned them in June. This was June 2019 when I marathoned them. And then when I did the DVD collection, I mentioned a story about how I grew to like them, and then eventually sinks in, right, I have more episode ideas, I could do this. So I gave it a couple of days thought, and I was like, right, this could work as a limited series sort of thing. So this was planned as a limited run, and it gave me 3 episodes to work with. Episode 73, Space Jam, Episode 74, Jack and Ori 10 in a Bed, and Episode 75, The Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before I did them, I did the rankings video because, like I said, someone left a comment on, I think it was the VHS and DVD video, And someone asked what I thought, what I considered to be the best 1 out of 5 I ever gave to a VHS or DVD, and that got me to thinking. I know what the best 1 out of 5 is, but how would I rank them altogether? Like from best to worst? And I thought, okay, there's an idea here. I can work with this. That always helps when you're thinking about something and then you get an idea. That always helps. Now, after the MCU episode, I would have been more than happy to stop. I had a few ideas going through my head, but nothing really was jumping out at me. Then in the middle of April, about 2 weeks after I made the Marvel episode, I developed a desire to talk about the Disney channels. I'm not sure if it's because I had just gone Disney Plus, but you know, the idea was there to talk about the beginning of the Disney Channel, Toon Disney, Playhouse Disney, Disney Cinemagic, I don't know. But then I was like, right, if I talk about that, I'm going to have to talk about Cartoon Network at some point. And you know, nothing in a review is certain until you start writing about it. So I was like, okay, what do I have here? I decided to go home and take notes. And this is another case where you start writing notes and you just can't stop because you have plenty to talk about. More than you need, really. Then I actually had to write the episode, and this was when I realised I had something. And it evolved into the second longest review I had ever made at that point, episode 76, Subscription TV. This episode came out of nowhere. It was the first unplanned episode since episode 9 at the very earliest. And this was probably the most inspiration I've had in a long time. And it probably goes without saying, this is my favourite review of 2020 and one of my favourite videos ever, just for the inspiration it gave me. My one gripe with the review is that it rehashes a lot of what I've already talked about, that being DiGGiT, Pinocchio, Thomas and Friends on Nick Jr., Cartoons. I feel like if I covered this one really early in like the first 20, then I would probably rank it as the best review I'd ever made. Episode 77, Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island. Now, even though I said I believed the MCU would be the last episode I would cover, I knew that if it was to return, I'd want this to be the next review subject. If you look at the end of the MCU episode, you can see me holding this very vaguely. Like it's facing the side, but if you look carefully you can see that I am holding Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island. It was already on my mind, and that was before I decided to do subscription TV. All in all, I thought it was a pretty good review, but one thing came up though. In the review, I talked briefly about the original cut of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. As much as I give that movie a lot of shit, one bit from the original cut holds up really well. And it's where Keith Scott, as Diesel 10, says this line.
Splunch! Get up here and destroy!
As much as I am indifferent to the original cut and to the movie in general, Keith Scott did a really good job with that line. Episode 78, George Carlin DVDs. Now, I knew years ago if I was willing to cover Ringo Starr, I'd have to talk about George. He is just as inspirational as Ringo, if not more. Last summer, I saw the commemorative collection on eBay. It was a bidding item, so I told myself, right, if I win this, I'll review it in Video Memories. And I didn't win it. When I eventually bought it at a cheaper price, I gave it a watch and I saw what the set contained. I realised if I included my original George DVDs, I could make a decent review there. Now, the view count for this review may not say much, but this is my second favourite review of 2020. It is a very personal review for me. Episode 79, Looney Tunes in Portugal. This was initially going to be just a review of Looney Tunes Stranger Than Fiction. But when I did research into where and when I bought the DVD, I remembered I bought other DVDs at the same time, and they were incredible watches, so I knew I'd have to talk about them. I was missing a few DVDs from when I moved house, so I had to seek out the other DVDs on eBay. So it probably goes without saying that the ones you see with English covers are actually from eBay. Episode 80, Toy Story. Now, I was nervous when I did this one. I'd contemplated doing the series numerous times over the years, but I didn't think I could do the movies justice. I put the first movie in, and when I started writing, it was another case of I cannot stop writing. I have a lot to say here. And I thought this could be a good sign. I only planned to talk about the first 3 movies and Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, but I knew deep down I'd have to talk about Toy Story 4. I didn't like the movie when I first saw it, so I gave it another go for the review, just hoping that it would get better, and it didn't get better. It actually got a lot worse. Let me just say this. Watching the first 3 movies and having a really great time with them, and then going to watch Toy Story 4 is a horrible idea. Toy Story 4 is nowhere near the quality level of the first 3. Episode 81, Singing Kettle Live. This was another filler episode, probably the only filler episode of the entire year. I found the DVD, I thought I could talk about it. Decent episode, nothing special. I should mention that around the time this review came out, I was working with Sean on the second Chases, Races and Runaways review, and had I not made the review a month in advance, I probably would have ended with a clip of Chases, Races and Runaways, as opposed to just a promo for the next episode. Episode 82, Muppet Christmas Carol. Truth be told, I wasn't sure if I was going to get much from this. It's one of those cases where you didn't really think about reviewing it until you actually sit down, watch it, and actually start writing about it. I knew I had a massive lead to build up to the Muppets, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. But then I just told myself, look, it's the last episode of the year, it's the Muppets, just have fun with it. And I would say that the opening story to build up to the Muppets is the best part of the review. And like I said at the end of the review, I have unfinished business with Video Memories, and that's what 2021 is going to be for. I have 3 more episodes planned. Episode 83 will be out in April, and it's about a series I've covered before. I've written an ungodly amount of notes for this, and I'm not even done. I expect it will be around the 10 to 15 minute mark. Don't hold me to that, I obviously haven't made the episode yet. Episode 84 will be out in May, and it will be something I've contemplated reviewing before. I've talked about it, but I was missing a few things that I wanted to include, which I've decided don't matter now, which I'll get to when I actually review it. And episode 85 will be in June and will be a subject I have never talked about before. So it's something I haven't watched in 20-25 years, so I have no idea how well it's going to work out. And then that begs the question, will Video Memories be done after that? I don't know. I mean, I tried to end the series twice before this, and look how well that worked out. If something happens, it happens. If I think of something, it'll get done. Don't hold your breath to that. I'm getting married this year, so my priorities will obviously be elsewhere. So if it comes back, it'll be a limited run again. We'll just see what happens. Also, I'd like to take note that now that I'm done with this recap, this is what my VHS collection looks like now. Yeah, it's a big fucking mess, isn't it?